Hey there, welcome to Monday Mastery, and it's another sunny Monday down in Alabama, but it's a little bit chilly. It's about 57, 56 degrees today, and not quite the sunny warm weather we've been used to down here, but yeah, well, it's it's a lot better than back in my hometown of Ironwood, where they have nearly 200 inches of snow for the season. So I'm glad I don't have to shovel. And I'm not dealing with ice. I'm not dealing with particularly cold temperatures. Although it was 29 this morning, so it was a little bit unseasonably cool. But we'll be back in the 80s. Before the weekend. So, hey, Liz, thanks for joining in. Yeah, 23 degrees in Ironwood. I am glad I am not there right now, but I'll be back soon enough. So, anyway, over the last week or so, I've been seeing a lot of videos about dating and relationships and marriage in particular, and how tough marriage is, and the things that you have to do to make a marriage work. And one young lady that I watched, and I don't think she was much more than in her early 30s, was sharing how opposites attract, and that they make the best marriages. And without getting into a whole lot of detail, that's not quite right. Studies show the opposite. But she was telling about how you have to work at this, and how you have to struggle to understand how your spouse's thinking process goes, and understand them and appreciate them. And granted, that's all true, and you should be doing those things in a healthy relationship. But Lord, that's just so much work. And it's caused me to think back over the years, and how I got into this business of coaching and working with singles, and even going back to my own marriage and the counseling we went through. And now when you're in a marriage, when you've made that commitment, I believe that you need to work on it, and you need to put in the effort. And the problem with all of this, the problem with all of the counseling, the problem with the premarital counseling with the pastor or the priest, or whatever religion you're beholden to, or you believe in. And I'm a believing, practicing Christian. So we went through the premarital counseling with the pastor, and he gave us some things. But in the end, none of that stuff worked. And the reason was that we had chosen poorly. And I believe that so many of us just choose poorly. Hey, Geneva, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. But so many of us just choose our mates poorly. Now, when we're in our 20s and maybe even early 30s, we don't have a lot of life experience, and we don't have a lot of guidance, because we came from more than likely dysfunctional households. That our parents had dysfunctional relationships. And if you came from what we used to call a broken home, where your parents were divorced, and I came from that background, that at about age 15, or no, it wasn't even that early, it was probably 11 or 12 when my parents got divorced. And you start looking back at what you learned. And they didn't, at least my parents didn't teach me about dating. They didn't teach me about relationships. Everything that I learned back then, and in my early dating years, was from what I observed from my parents and from practical experience. And all of that stuff, it combined over the years, that none of what I was learning was of any significant benefit to me. And so as I started going through the rough times in my marriage, there were so many books, there was so much information on how to fix a broken relationship. But as I was ending my marriage and actually moving on into divorce and the dating world afterward, there was nothing out there on how to choose a good partner. There was nothing on how to make a good decision on who I should date and who I should end up in a relationship with. And that's how I got started with all of this. That I recognized early on in my dating life, and I screwed up a lot after my divorce, my early dating life after my divorce. And I made a lot of mistakes. And along the way, I started to recognize all of the mistakes that I was making, and there were several mistakes that I saw other people making. And it became a common occurrence to talk to people, to review my own dating, to see that there were several very, very common mistakes that I've seen in almost everyone. Now, not everyone makes all of these mistakes, but there are quite a few that overlap, and quite a few that just don't get remedied anywhere along the way. When you go to therapy, when you go to counseling, they teach you how to negotiate with your partner, how to work through things. They don't teach you how to choose wisely. And I go back to this time and time and time again, that if we made better choices up front, the work we have to do on the back end would be much easier. Now, that being said, that makes the work on the front end more difficult. It makes it we have to do our due diligence on the front end, rather than being enamored or enthralled with somebody, going through the infatuation stage and saying, "Oh, isn't he sweet? Oh, isn't she nice? Look at," and you have all these great things going on in the very early months of a relationship, but after that stuff wears off, it's what's left. We tend to choose somebody we have some fun with, but when we're not careful, we don't have a lot in common later on. Hey, Phil, thanks for joining in. Phil's is in the Kansas City area, and so when we finally, or when the infatuation finally wears off, we're left thinking, man, what did I just do? What have I spent my last year, 2 years? Maybe you've even gotten married and saying, wow, that was a mistake. And you start recognizing that early on. And in my heart of hearts, there's a better way. And I've come to the conclusion that we have to make better decisions. Hey, Kathy, thanks for joining in from Tennessee. We have to start making better decisions up front. And when you start making those better choices up front, it makes life so much easier in the long run. And it's not always easy to do this stuff up front. It's not always easy to go through the dating process and weeding out, and and sadly because of our family situations, or our personal experiences in the dating world, we typically don't learn a lot. We may start to recognize, especially when we get into our 50s and 60s and even 70s, we start to recognize, well, there are some things that I want to do differently this time. But most people can tell me more about what they don't want. Hey, Don, thanks for joining in. I hope you're doing well in Lake of the Ozarks. There are so many things that we think we want to do differently, but because we're creatures of habit, we tend to gravitate to the same type of people. The people that have been problems for us in the past. They're you run into the same problems. It's just it comes in a different package. So the whole idea is to start recognizing some of the mistakes that we all make, and I've made most of these mistakes in my dating and relationship lives. And so let's start covering some of these today. The five biggest mistakes that I see in dating and relationships. And the first one, and I see this in so many people, and I dealt with it early on in after my divorce, and that's dating with a chip on your shoulder, where you carry the anger or hostility or the wounds of your past relationships. My ex did this, my ex did that, my ex caused me this problem or that problem, and there has to come a point in time where you let those problems go. Otherwise, you become the date from hell. And I don't want any of you to be the date from hell. If you're recently divorced or recently widowed, and widows and divorcees have some slightly different issues to deal with, but but both of you need to take time to heal, grieve the loss of those relationships. Even if you're in a divorce that you came out of a toxic relationship, you still need to grieve the loss of that relationship. You need to, if it were a toxic or hurtful or a relationship with any major problems, you have to forgive your ex. It doesn't mean you need to go and say, I forgive you for all the problems you created in my life or for all the heartaches that you created in my life. But you have to say it to yourself. You have to tell yourself that you forgive them. I had to do the same thing with my dad, of all people. I grew up being called stupid and an idiot until I was age 52. And when I finally stood up for myself and said, no, we're no more. We're not going down that road anymore. And it took us a number of years to recover from that. And so, and I actually wrote him a letter and told him that I forgive him. And that unless there were some changes on his part, that we'd probably never talk again. And over time, we healed some old wounds and mended some fences, and it was still problematic. We still had issues, but I was mindful enough to not cross into certain topics that caused us great consternation or great problems. And these are the things that we have to learn to do, that you all have to learn to do also. And so many people tell me, "Oh, yep, I was separated for 3 years, and I'm freshly divorced. I did all my healing." No, you didn't. I guarantee you didn't, because the real healing doesn't begin until after the divorce decree is final, and the signature, everybody signed off on everything, and even then there's going to be some problems, because you're dealing with, especially if you're dealing with an ex with young children, there can be problems there of how you raise the kids and who does what discipline, and so there has to be a coming together of the minds there, and you're still going to need to deal with them. And in some situations, it becomes very, very difficult. It becomes very, very toxic. But you still, for the sake of the kids, you still have to deal with the ex. Speaking of exes, never, never, never run down your ex in front of your kids. Try never to argue with your ex in front of your kids. It just creates problems in their lives and emotional turmoil in their lives. And when when there's a divorce or even the death of a spouse, it creates great turmoil in the child's life because they've just lost one parent. And even if there's a shared custody in the case of divorce, it becomes problematic anyway because they're bouncing from one household to the next, and that just creates turmoil for the kids. And I a friend of mine's daughter is recently divorced, and they've got shared custody, and they're sharing every other day. Or actually every day so that every other day she's at the child is in the daughter is in his custody, and then every other day it's in mom's custody. So I mean, it's just it just creates problems. And so the point of all this is you need to heal some of those wounds, some of those old wounds. You need to let some of that go. Doesn't mean you need to forget. By no means am I saying to forget. But there has to be a forgiveness. There has to be a letting go for your own personal health and welfare. It's one of those things that the more you let go of the anger, the frustration, the hurts of the past, the better off you're going to be when you're dating. The last thing that anybody wants to have is a conversation with you about you telling them how terrible your ex was. It doesn't mean that you're not going to talk about your exes. It's a healthy conversation. Well, why did that relationship end? Why did your marriage end? What happened? And we have to assume responsibility for our share of the problems. I assume my responsibility in the failure of my marriage. I was a partner to that. It wasn't all her fault. Part of it was my fault. How we communicated and just recognizing the mistakes that I made. We have to do that in order to heal and to move forward. And unless you do that, you're always going to be carrying that baggage along with you, and it's going to hinder your ability to date in a healthy way. Number 2 on my list is that when you get back into the dating world, you're not crystal clear about what you want in your next relationship. It's more people can tell me what they don't want, and that's kind of a spillover from number 1, dating with hurt and anger. And because when we start dating, we're a lot of times we're freshly out in the dating world and new and still wounded and trying to heal from that stuff and from that turmoil, and we're focused on all the things that we don't want. Well, guess what? When you're focusing on the things that you don't want, that's exactly what you're going to find. There have been studies that show that our brains just notice the things that we focus on. I've used the story about shopping for a new car. When you go out and you find the car, you go to the various dealerships, and you find the one that you think you really want. What do you start seeing on the way home? You start seeing that car, and usually in the color that you're looking for. And it's because your mind is focused on that particular vehicle. Same thing happens with dating. Same thing happens in relationships. If you're focused on you don't want any smokers, and you say it in that way, I don't want to date a smoker. Well, guess what you're going to find? You're going to find all the attractive, handsome, or beautiful, or personally attractive, but they're going to smoke. The odds are that they're going to be smokers because that's what you're focusing on. And let's see, I've been ranting and raving here, so. Geneva says, and we're constantly watching for red flags. Absolutely. But but Geneva, beyond that, what I think happens is when we're when we're focused on the negative aspects, we think we're paying attention to the red flags. But I can't tell you. Hey, Glenn, thanks for joining in. I'll be with you in just a second here. When we're focused on the negative aspects, the things that we don't want, those are the relationships, or those are the people that we tend to spot, and we tend to end up dating those people. I've worked with people that said, "Nope, I'll never date a smoker," and they end up spending the next 5 years with somebody that says, "Yeah, I'll quit. I promise I'll quit." Yeah, no, it just doesn't happen. And Glenn says, it truly takes time to let go of bad relationships, but life goes on, and you have to let go of the past. Absolutely, Glenn. That's my point. That if you don't let go of the past, it's going to inhibit you from moving forward and finding your extraordinary relationship or your soulmate. Because when you're focused on the hurt, the negative, or the negativity of past relationships, again, just like we're talking about now, the not being crystal clear about what you do want, with all that negativity and you're being carried along with you, those are the types of people that you continue to find, and those are the types of relationships that you tend to gravitate towards because they're familiar, they're comfortable. But little do you realize you're just trading a 5 for 5 ones, as my dad used to say, and you end up in the same type of a relationship, a not healthy relationship or not a great relationship, and it's just in a different package. So there are a lot of a lot of moving parts in dating and relationships, and unless you come prepared, emotionally and mentally healthy and ready to date, and most of us, me included, when I first was divorced and back on the dating scene, I was not emotionally healthy and not emotionally ready to start another relationship. It just doesn't happen that quick. And consequently, I had to date several years, and I saw a great change in my attitude. And over time, and it took a little while, but over time I got to the point where, okay, I'm comfortable with my own company, and in being comfortable with my own company, I don't need to be in a relationship. And that's to be able to date from a healthy perspective. That's where you all need to be. You need to be comfortable with your own company and say, yep, if I end up in a relationship, great. If not, that's okay too. That it doesn't mean that you don't long for a relationship. It doesn't mean that you don't long for good company and somebody to share life with. I think we all do that. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here. But when you're not ready to let go of the past, and again, I'm not saying to forget. But there's the forgiveness part, and getting yourself emotionally and mentally healthy to be able to move into a new relationship and in a healthy way. The third mistake is not recognizing the red flags or the warning signs of poor relationships, and Geneva just mentioned that we need to be aware of those signs. And the warning signs are going to be different for all of you. My warning signs are going to be different than yours, and yours are going to be different than the next person. So whatever your warning signs are, whatever your your red flags are. Now there should be some common red flags. Somebody that treats you poorly. They may treat you well in the beginning, but if you're out on a date and they treat wait staff poorly, I can guarantee you that's going to rebound to you eventually. They're on their best behavior, and they're not going to hold back after a while. You're going to be a problem in their life too. So if they're miserable and not treating people that they come in contact with, how do they treat their family? How do they get along with their family? Well, that's not a hard and fast rule. It will give you an idea of how they get along with people, that are close to them. But there are situations that you're going to run into that they may not get along with their family at all, because their family may be crazy. Their family may be abusive. And there may be some verbal, some physical, some emotional abuse in their background that they're trying to distance themselves from. And that may be that's a good sign for them, that they're trying to distance themselves from that. They're trying to change. They're making they're working on a healthy relationship for themselves. So those, you have to be careful if they don't have a good relationship with their family. Just as I don't have a great relationship with my family because of some history in the past. There are instances where you have to say, okay, what happened? Why is that? And what's going on? And if the explanation is rational and reasonable, then run with it. But it's so important to be able to recognize your red flags, and that's why it's important to have your deal breaker list. What are your deal breakers? You guys can pop in the comments here and share some of your deal breakers. It's and your deal breaker list should be a relatively short list. If you've got a deal breaker list that's a mile long, then we need to start taking a look at that and seeing how you can convert some of those things to must-haves and add those to your must-have list. Because again, it goes back to, what are you focusing on? If everything you're focusing on is negative, if you've got a long list of deal breakers, what are you going to be focusing on? You're going to be focusing on those deal breakers, and I guarantee you, those are the people you're going to find. And then you're going to come back to me and say, Rick, there are no good men out there. There are no good women out there. They're all broken. They're all damaged goods. And ladies, with all due respect, and I'm going to jump back to number one here real quick. Especially recently, I found a lot of women. And I know guys have these issues too, but ladies, I recognize that a lot of you can hang on to some of the negativity and some of the hurts for a long time. A woman that I dated not too long ago, last year, the spring of last year, was hanging on to the hurt from her divorce 16 years ago. And it's like, you can't do that and try to move forward. You have to move past that. You have to recognize that, okay, that was the past. That can't be the future. So being able to recognize the red flags of poor relationships or toxic relationships is important. Again, what are some of your must-have, or what are some of your deal breakers? Mine are cats. While they can be cute and cuddly, and I just don't want cats in the house. Tattoos and again, some of the artwork is just absolutely gorgeous, but that's a turnoff for me. And pornography, that's a turnoff for me. And so what are the things that are turnoffs for you? These are only things that you can decide, not me. I can't tell you what the warning signs are. Now, there are some warning signs of toxic relationships, like gaslighting, where somebody is going to make you feel that everything you do is wrong, that everything that they do is right, and all of the problems in their life are caused by you. They'll tell you that they're the only one that will take you because you're not smart enough, you're not pretty enough, or whatever their excuse is. They're going to try to run you down and break your spirit, and in order to take control of the relationship. So those are some things that should be automatic warning flags. And ladies, this is more prevalent to you. Don't stick around when you see warning signs. Don't stick around when you see red flags. It's not going to get any better, and you're not going to change them. If you see alcohol abuse, it's not your responsibility. It's not your place to try to fix somebody. Your role is to try to find somebody that's a great fit for you, or a great match for you. It's one of those things that I've over the years, I've talked with hundreds of people that have told me, yep, I saw early on that this wasn't a relationship, but I hated to let go because I'd invested so much time, and I didn't want to walk away thinking that I didn't give it 110%. Well, if you start seeing some of these warning signs, and I don't care how many great characteristics they may have going for them, if you see warning signs, if you see red flags, it should be, baby, I'm out the door. There should be no questions asked. I'm on to my search again. There's nothing healthy about hanging around in a toxic in a toxic relationship, or in a toxic dating situation. It's not going to get any better. There may be some temporary changes, but if they have to start making changes, or you have to start making changes for them. Now, I'm not talking about the minor little things on accommodating each other, and accommodating each other's schedules, or how you work your dating schedules. There has to be accommodations there. If you don't have any time for a partner, then what are you going to do to accommodate dating? If you're so busy that you're just running from one part of your life to the next, how are you going to work in somebody into that into a relationship situation? And Geneva says, I'm scared of the healthy relationships. Seems crazy, but it's real. And Geneva, I understand that. And I'd be curious to find out what scares you about healthy relationships. And if you can share that, I'd love to address that here. And if we need to address it off the air, I'd be more than happy to visit with you and maybe help you work through that. Because if I understand correctly, it's probably because you've never had a really healthy relationship, and it's something new. It can be scary. It can be you don't know how to react, and it's like in a lot of those situations, it's like, okay, what do they want? When is the axe going to fall, or when am I going to get in trouble? And I'm guessing there are some things like that. But when you find that healthy relationship, you're going to find a relationship that is so awesome, that you get connected so deeply. And it's like anything, that the first time you see that, yeah, it can be like, holy crap, is this for real? And so if I'm on track, let me know, Geneva. It's And Geneva says, yes, I have no idea how to react. Well, when somebody, do you know how to act when, or react when somebody treats you well? And do you know how it feels to do something nice for someone else? And those are the couple of questions that okay, great. She said I'm 100% on track. Yes, it is scary, but this is sometimes where you have to start letting your guard down, because sometimes we build up walls that are so thick and so high that they're designed to keep out the hurt. They're designed to keep out the problems with our relationships, or the negativity, and to try to protect our hearts from being hurt again. But these walls that are so thick and so tall are also the same walls that keep us out of the relationships and prevent us from finding the love that we are actually seeking. So it's a double-edged sword. We have to start breaking down these walls. We have to start looking at them brick by brick or rock by rock and seeing, okay, what did this block represent for me, or what does this rock represent for me? Does this represent the anger and the rage that I had in my last relationship? And is everyone that I meet in the future going to bring that anger and that rage to my next relationship? You have to take, there's let's see, let me bring this up. Geneva says, I've always been the giver in the emotional, not the taker. Well, it's and that indicates to me that the relationships you've been in have been more one-sided. That you've been working very hard to make the relationship work, while the guys have not reciprocated your efforts. And that should be a red flag to you, Geneva, that if you're the one doing all the work and there's no reciprocal effort, that's a time to just walk away. And you should be able to see that, if you find somebody that has a lot of great characteristics, and they make you laugh, and they treat you well, at least in the beginning, then they start to put in a little less effort and a little less effort. Well, if that's the type of guy that you end up finding, then it should be a quick decision to say, nope, I'm not going there. I've already done this, and we're not going there anymore. And you can tell, and you can just be straight with them and say, no, I don't feel a connection there. And that's all you have to say, and then just move on. And so, but I understand that when you're not used to receiving the emotional support that you're used to giving, it can be scary. It's like I said, it's going to be, holy crap, I'm getting back what I'm giving. What's wrong? When are the problems going to show up? So you have to be careful not to chase those guys away if that's what you're feeling and that's what you're thinking when you find somebody like that. And that can be easy, very easy to do, because you can start feeling that, like, the nervousness starts building up in you and saying, okay, when are the problems going to start happening? And you start pulling back, and you start adding more bricks to your wall and making it more difficult for them to reach you. So it's you're walking a fine line here, Geneva, but I promise you, when you find the right guy, it's going to be a relationship like you've never experienced before. And it is going to be so awesome. And they're going to put into the relationship as much as you're putting in. And that's the type of relationship you should be looking for. And if you're not finding that, then it's time to it's time to start looking at a different pool, in a different arena, so to speak. That you start finding guys that have the ability of giving and being connected to you. So, if you have questions there, just feel free to pop those in the comments there. One of the fourth problem is that most of us, my hand goes up to, most of us jump into bed way too soon. Having sex way too soon in a relationship is a problem. There are four cornerstones to a great relationship. They're developing an intellectual, a spiritual, an emotional, and a physical connection. Now, we can all develop the physical connection, but there's two parts of that. There's the physical intimacy, but there's also the physical attraction. We all want to be attracted to our partner. And too many people today, because of our society, it dates back to the late 50s, early 60s with the free love generation that if it feels good, do it. And, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Oh, you're very welcome, Geneva. So, and that's just evolved to there was in my generation, I grew up with free sex, and it's taken its toll on a lot of people, both men and women, especially women. But it's not something that we should be seeking. We should be seeking a relationship with each other. We should be seeking to get to know each other intellectually, developing a spiritual connection, developing an emotional connection. The sex should be left until marriage, and I've had as many women as men tell me that, well, they want to make sure everything works. They want to make sure that there's going to be desire and fun in the bedroom. Well, I can almost guarantee you that there will be. Now, there are going to be certain circumstances where, somebody's equipment doesn't work, or there may be issues, but there are ways of working around those things. There are conversations to be had, and I'm not talking about sexually intimate conversations, but saying, finding out what you like, what you don't, what you can do, what you can't do, and developing some understanding there. And if your partner is looking for something that you're not interested in or can't provide, then it's time to say, yep, I'm not the right one for you. And Liz says, the first guy I went out with told me that he thought sex was a very important part of a relationship. I told him, yes, it was, but you have to have a relationship first. Absolutely. And unfortunately, Liz, in this happens more so with guys, that men are more interested in developing a sexual relationship instead of developing an entire relationship. And it makes dating so difficult, especially for women. And then you get the pigs the guys that operate by the 3-date or the 5-date rule, that kind of mess up the whole works for all of us. And the 3-date, if you're not familiar with that, is that 3 days and they expect you to be in bed. Now, that being said, statistics show that, and studies have shown that 80% of couples are going to be in bed on or before the 8th date. So you really still haven't had a chance to really get to know each other. So you're still basically sleeping with a stranger. And as much fun as it is, it's not a healthy way to build a relationship, because what happens, and it works both ways for men and women, that the relationship becomes all about the sex. And that's the last thing you should build that should be the last part of the foundation that you build on. That should be the icing on the cake. And Kathy says, exactly, but I want to find someone I'm attracted to. That's the hard part for me. Well, and I understand, but that's one half of the physical attraction part, or the physical connection is finding somebody that you're attracted to. And it's okay to be picky, Kathy. It really is, because only you can determine what you want. Only you can determine what's important to you in a relationship. Only you can determine what's right for you and what isn't. You may have friends that tell you, "Oh, Kathy, you're just way too picky. He's a great guy. Just look past the looks, and I mean, he's got a lot to offer." But if you're not attracted to him, it just doesn't make any difference. And the same way with guys, you have to be attracted, and guys typically are much more visual than women. But ladies, I know you still need to be attracted to your guy. But ladies, admittedly, you all may peel back a few layers first before you say, not so much. It's one of those things that you want to develop an intellectual connection also, and that's a good thing. I appreciate that. Liz says, I've had the wonderful relationship in my marriage. I won't settle. Awesome. And Liz, I find that more with widows than I do with divorcees. I find more widows that have had great relationships, and not necessarily extraordinary, but great. A lot of you have had exceptional relationships, and so your bar is set much higher. And those of us that are divorced tend to have not have had that experience, and because obviously we're divorced. So the reality is that it's harder for divorcees to set that bar higher, because we don't know what to expect. We don't know how good it can be. I do know how good it can be. I've had some experiences with some great women that I've dated over the years, and I've been with over the years, and it is, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you, it's a connection there is a connection when you're with the right person that is so deep. It is so you find yourself wanting to be the best person that you can be for your partner every single day. You ask yourself, how can I be better? And what can I do to make my partner's life better? And Geneva, when you find a guy like that, you'll automatically recognize that he's doing some great things, and he's generally not playing games. And the older we get, ladies, guys tend not to play as many games. We're looking for that someone that we connect with, and if you all start playing games and And the games I'm talking about are, I'm not going to pursue him. I'm not going to show great interest. Well, guess what? He's going to walk away. I absolutely guarantee it. Because guys in their 50s and 60s and 70s, they're not here to play games. They're just not going to play those games. And if you want to start doing that kind of stuff, if you want to start making him chase you all over Hell's Half Acre to get your attention and try to get you to pay attention to him, there's only so much that he's going to put up with. And if he doesn't see some reciprocal effort, he's going to be gone. I just absolutely promise you. Now, guys, pay attention here. The first thing out of your mouth when you're talking to somebody shouldn't be asking them about sex. Just the sexual conversations come way later. It's get to know somebody personally. It's not all about sex, and nor should it be, because that's only 1/4 of the equation. If all things are equal, and it's important to again develop an intellectual, a spiritual, and emotional connection. Those are the things that are really going to connect you to a woman. And the sex, when she feels comfortable, when she feels safe, when she feels secure, then there will be a comfort level there that you can start talking about that stuff and sharing ideas. But to both of you, men and women, stay away from the bedroom as long as you can. Keep the clothes on, and this sounds prudish, but try not to even kiss. I swear to God, because that's when you guys start kissing. That's when the hormones start to go crazy, and it's all over except the crying. And I'm running out of time here. The last one, and Geneva and I touched on it a little bit, is number 5 is you don't know what a great relationship looks like, or a healthy relationship looks like, because with the exception of some of the widows or widowers, it's the rest of us that are divorced, we grew up in a dysfunctional household, and that's basically how we learned how to date. We emulated our parents, we emulated our grandparents, and it's when we see those things, those are the things that we think are okay. And it's not necessarily true. If you need to do some study, which you all should be doing, we all should be perpetual learning machines. It should be a constant and never-ending improvement. And Phil says, how true about men and relationships. Yeah, absolutely, Phil. I agree. And it's, we all have our issues. And society has kind of messed us up in so many ways, with the evolution of social engineering and feminist movements of the 60s and 70s and 80s, and it's okay to be a feminist, but where do you draw the line? If you're drawing the line that says a guy can't open doors for you, come on. And then you tell me that there are no good men out there. There are no chivalrous men. It's because you're chasing them away. So it's a double-edged sword. And without getting too deep into the socio-political or the arena, let's just suffice it to say that we both have to be open to a loving, nurturing relationship. And if you don't recognize what those look like, if you're not familiar, get my book, Dating Backward. It's a good book that takes a practical look at at dating and relationships and how to make it work. If you want a little more hands-on, reach out and I'll get you connected to my course, Dating Made Simple Academy. It's about 3.5 hours of videos, maybe a little bit more, and worksheets and not spreadsheets, but yeah, kind of like spreadsheets, but worksheets to help you work through quizzes, and it's all designed to help you move forward. It's all designed to help you get a grasp and become move from a hesitant dater. And I'm using that term especially for Geneva tonight because of her comments. When you date hesitantly, you're not truly active. You're not truly searching for the right relationship. And both my book or the course or even individual coaching, one-on-one coaching, I've helped hundreds of people through the dating process and get you focused on what's important to you and how you can start searching in earnest and become an intentional dater, and truly searching for your soulmate and not settling for less. You learn how to, it's important to let go of the attitude that I need to be in a relationship. I'm lonely. I've got to have somebody in my life. And you learn to let go of that and say, is this the right person? And I hit a chord, Geneva. Yes. Hesitant dater. Hi, it's me. I'm the problem. It's me. And Geneva, if you'd like, let's get you plugged into either my book or to my course. Or if you want to do one-on-one coaching, we can do that too. But it's being the hesitant dater is you limit yourself, you limit the possibilities, and the idea is to go from hesitant to intentional dating. And I'm not saying that this is going to wave a magic wand over your dating life, but it will make a significant difference, and it will help you to stop wasting time in toxic relationships, stop wasting time in even spending time with the wrong people. Because when you go through my book or through my course, either one will help you start recognizing whether somebody's worth pursuing further in 30 days or less. You can go out and with somebody for a few dates and in 30 days I can tell you'll know whether this is somebody worth pursuing further or they're not worth your time, because as nice as they may be, as much as they may have to offer, there's something missing, or there's huge red flags or warning signs that this isn't the relationship for me. And it's so important because we have such a finite time on this earth. Somebody gave me a great analogy the other day. Is you take a tape measure and roll it out to about 80 or 85 inches. And when you're in your 20s or 30s, you still have a lot of that tape measure left. But if you're like me, you get into your 40s, 40s and beyond, you're about halfway done, and you get to be somebody like me. I'm 66. And that means I've got maybe 14 to 20 years left. Realistically, if we're looking at the common lifespans, the whole idea is to be with the one that truly excites you, that truly enhances your life. And that's what my book Dating Backward or my course Dating Made Simple Academy will help you do. It will help you stay out of the garbage relationships and stay focused on what's important to you. So anyway, if any of you guys are interested, drop me a note, and I'll get you connected with either my book or the course. And if you reach out to me in the next couple of days, I'll give you $100 off the course. and the book is $15.97, and the course is you're very welcome, Geneva. You're very welcome. The course itself is $297, but like I said, for the next couple of days, I'll give you $100 off, and we'll make that $197. And then you have access to all that information for life. And as I update things, it's yours. You get the updates. You get all the other stuff that goes along with it. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you tonight. If you guys have interest in the course, let me know, or in the book, let me know, and we'll get you set up. We'll get you taken care of. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for the great comments. I love you guys. I hope you have a great and blessed week and a fun weekend next weekend, and whatever you have planned. And I'll see you next Monday right here from Foley, Alabama. Have a good one. Love you guys. Thank you so much.